I know it has been a long time.
Good evening and welcome to the September 26, 2013 Environmental Advisory Council meeting of Radnor Township. I'd like to start off by having an approval of actually it was 2 months ago. Last time we met was on the 25th of July. There was not an August meeting. Any comments or changes to the minutes of July? Can I get approval, motion to approve?
So moved?
All in favor?
Aye.
Let me see if I can turn the volume down on this thing. Thanks. Next, some announcements. I brought maybe 6 announcements or so I'll get right on it. On the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission website, there is an announcement that they have just released 2 reports, one of which is very sizable, I might add. 2 volumes. They're both regarding electric vehicles. Sloan, you might want to take a look at this. It's pretty interesting. It's their regional, Southeastern Pennsylvania's Regional Electric Vehicle Action Plan. Volume 1 was Planning and Policy Recommendations. Volume 2 called Technology Overview, Detailed Analysis, and Appendices. It was released just this month. It was a collaboration between the DVRPC, PICO, City of Philadelphia, and the Greater Philadelphia Clean Cities organization. So check out dvrpc.org if you're interested in more on what they think of electric vehicles in their future. Just to note, there were some interesting tidbits in there about what how they foresee the market developing and who's buying these cars and demographics and some interesting things. Also on their website, I noted that they've released the 2010 Regional Energy Use and Greenhouse Gas Inventory Report. We are all familiar with their 2005 report. I'm not sure if this had been released in a different format earlier, but it has just been released now in the format that it's in. And I, of course, had to check out Radnor Township, and Radnor Township's greenhouse gas emissions, as reported in their inventory, have increased 15% from the 2005 baseline level. So I think it would take a lot more research and investigation to find out if anything has changed in their methodology, or, are we looking at apples and apples here? But
was it just the municipal buildings, or was
no, that was the
whole community?
The entire community. So that's residential, commercial, industrial,
So it's not
municipal.
apples to apples to our baseline for our
Correct.
state.
Correct, yep. On Radnor Township's website, I noted that the 2013 deer culling report has been released. You can go onto radnor.com to read that in full, but interesting quick summary. The United States Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services unit culled 250 deer in 11 visits, with an additional 64 deer killed through a private hunting operation that they had going on. The automobile deer collisions are now down 50% from the same period last year. They are budgeting, or at least they are recommending the township consider budgeting $55,000 to $76,000 for the next season for killing more deer.
I don't know if it mentioned, but I understood that they had culled approximately 250 deer, but that the target, the recommended deer population for a town of Radnor's size was sort of in the 200 to 300 deer, and there are approximately an estimate.
I was over 1,000.
1,400, something like
yeah,
that. So
yeah.
at least toward the fair distance to go to get to the
Which is why
recommended level.
I imagine they're recommending
Further work.
further programs to
Right.
keep going. Yeah. Also on Radnor Township's website, there is an announcement of a program called Just Singing in the Rain. The public is welcome to learn how to garden to improve our watershed, its streams, and water management. This is being hosted by the Community Garden Club at Wayne. It is on Thursday, October 3rd at 6:30 at the Radnor Memorial Library. Presenting will be Robert Struble, who is the Watershed Conservation Director at the Brandywine Valley Association. More info on radnor.com. On the Delaware Valley Green Building website, DVGBC, under the Green Build 2013, as you all will remember, is the big national conference that Philadelphia is hosting this year. I thought it was interesting that there are over 60 dedicated sustainability professionals that are serving on tours of the DVGBC. I think there's 35 tours that are available. So if you're interested in, green buildings and of different types and whatnot, there are a lot of different tours to choose from. If I saw some of them like sports facilities, like the Eagles. I think the Eagles Stadium is on one of them. In fact, our very own EAC chairperson emeritus, Brenda Gatanda, will be leading one of those tours on the 18th, Monday, November 18th. And that one's called Philadelphia Manufacturing Center for the World, which will include visits to several LEED certified facilities. And then that is on dvgbc.org. Lastly, the Chester County Citizens for Climate Protection are giving a presentation called The New Climate Reality. This is a presentation providing a wealth of new scientific information on climate change and its impact on humankind. It is being presented by Dr. Diane Phillips on Thursday, October 3rd from 6:30 to 7:30 at the Henrietta Hankin Library in Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. That's the Chester County. They ask you to sign up at the Chester County Library website on the events page. Does anybody have any other announcements?
Yep, I do. There is a new national stormwater calculator available. This is as of early August. Something put out by the EPA on the EPA's website. And it's a desktop application that estimates the annual amount of rainwater frequency of runoff from a specific site anywhere in the U.S., and it should be of interest to homeowners as well as other people like landscape architects. So anybody interested can just go to epa.gov and look for National Stormwater Calculator.
And I saw got an email that there's a webinar, I think it's next Tuesday, that's open to anyone, free of charge, that talks about how to use it. But I imagine you could do some Googling and find the exact time and how to sign up.
Any other announcements? Okay, I would like to move into a presentation that we're going to have this evening. This is a presentation by Joel Thomas and Derek Sheehan of Radnor's Community Energy, Inc. And I have met with these guys earlier to talk about what type of power supply options that we here at Radnor might consider for the township's own purchasing of electricity. Ben Cooper and I have discussed this in the past. Ben is on the Green Team and was looking into power supply options that might reduce our carbon footprint. And it's tough to pull information like that just off, by Googling and whatnot. So we figured we had this great resource here in Radnor, a company that does exactly what we're interested in learning about. So, and of course they've presented here before, at least once, maybe even twice before. And but I asked them to come today to help us move a little further down the road here, to getting closer to deciding if this is something that Radnor can do. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys, Joel and Derek. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. Usually I have to travel to present, so it's great to we could have walked, we drove over, but we could have walked over, which is fantastic. And yeah, Josh, thanks again for inviting us.
Sure. Do you have anything? Oh, sorry. Never
Yes. Yeah. Can everybody see that all right? Okay. I've got about maybe 5 to 8 minutes of material, but please interrupt me at any point in time with questions as we go through. No need to wait until the end of talking. Just a little background on Community Energy. Is everybody here familiar with the company? Okay, so I'll just give you the very short version. We're based over in the corporate park over there at Metzenford Road, so very close. We've been based in Radnor for, gosh, our entire existence since 1999. We've got about 80,000 retail customers throughout the Northeast. That's really where our major footprint is. We do have an office in Colorado, just a few people out there, but really 90% of our employees are over here in Radnor. If you've seen the wind turbines in Atlantic City, that was us. We developed that project a few years back. Also the Keystone Solar Project in Lancaster County. At the time it was built, it was the largest solar project in PA. It's a 6 megawatt project there. We do tours of that project all the time. We even have one coming up this Sunday. So if anyone's interested in seeing the solar farm, Derek's going to be giving a tour on Sunday. We'd love to get you information about that. And then we also did a solar project at Eastern University just down the road here. So if you're interested in seeing something more local, that's an opportunity. And we're about to break ground on a project in North Philly, actually. I'm not allowed to announce where exactly. But that'll be constructed in October. So we're really excited about doing more local development. What's up? Solar, yeah. Not a whole lot of opportunity to do wind and, oh, thanks, Darren.
There is opportunity to do solar, though? Is that?
Well, we can have a long conversation about how these projects get done, and there is opportunity. The trick, I'll give you the 30-second bit now, and we can always talk more later. So the SREC market has really crashed, so there's really not enough incentives to get a project done
SREC?
economically. Sorry, what's that? SREC, to define what that is for everybody? Okay. So I'll get into RECs in a moment. So basically the short answer is the solar projects aren't economical on their own, but through our customer base, we're able to make them happen. So we got to enough customers in Philadelphia, and that's how we're making that solar project happen. And that actually ties into what we're going to be talking about in a moment with the RECs and how people can contribute to those projects. So just to take a step back and look at where Radnor has come from, we did a bit of research into what Radnor has done in the past. You guys are probably all aware of this, but just to revisit it. Radnor had purchased green energy through the PICO wind program. That was a program that Community Energy had initiated with PICO a number of years ago. You had the option of purchasing blocks of wind on your electric bill. And so Radnor had opted to purchase RECs through that program. In fact, you were purchasing last year, you purchased about 137 megawatt hours. If you were to look at what that would represent in your current electricity usage, that would be about 4.2% renewable.
Is that just the municipality, or is that the community of Radnor, including private residents?
So that number is 137 is what you bought, and the number that I'm comparing that to is Josh had sent me over 30 electric accounts. And I actually submitted a usage request to PICO, so they spit back the total usage. And so I looked at the last 2-year average and just it took the average.
So those
from
are the
1 year.
municipal.
So those are Radnor Township's accounts. Now, the 30 accounts is got to be pretty close to all of our
Pretty
accounts.
close to all of it.
Yeah.
It's a good amount of usage. I mean, this is 3,223 megawatt hours. To put that in a number you might understand, it's about 400 homes. Yeah. The PICO wind program ended last December, and that, as you're, again, probably all aware, the whole Pennsylvania market has deregulated, so all the utilities and the Public Utility Commission thought it would be unfair if the utilities offered a green program. They want competitive suppliers to offer green options, so Community Energy is one of the green suppliers out there, and so PICO wind simply isn't an option anymore. However, you do have an option to be green through competitive suppliers. And then also, to give you a sense of the cost, you're spending about $3,500 a year for those RECs through the PICO wind program. And it was coming all from 100% Pennsylvania wind projects like the Bear Creek wind farm that's depicted here.
I'm sorry, then you say that approximates to $25 per renewable energy credit, or is that how you got the $3,500?
Exactly. It was $25, and that's how I calculated the 3,500. I just took the $25,
Multiplied by
multiplied by the 137.
137.
Yeah.
So is that an incremental cost, or is that the actual cost of the electricity that was purchased that was tied to wind?
Right. So now's a good time to, I think, answer Josh's question from before about what a REC is. And please, like, this will not make sense probably the first time that I explain it. And so please just, like, ask me questions until we're all at the same understanding. I've been in presentations where I talk about RECs and people come up and they're like, actually just don't go into that in the future. Look, I feel like I knew more when you just didn't say it. Just say it's wind power. So when a renewable energy facility generates a megawatt hour of electricity, and a megawatt hour is just 1,000 kilowatt hours. So that's the unit of electricity that we use to quantify how much electricity is being generated on the grid, 1 megawatt hour. When a megawatt hour is generated by a renewable energy facility, there are really two values that are created. One is the actual energy itself. So that's a megawatt hour of energy. That's powering machines, that's turning on light bulbs, et cetera. But then there's also an environmental attribute. And the argument there is that a megawatt hour generated by a solar facility or a wind facility is more valuable than a megawatt hour generated by a coal facility or a natural gas facility because there are zero emissions. And so we want to assign a value to that megawatt hour that's not just the energy value. That's really the remaining environmental value. And we call that a renewable energy certificate. So for every megawatt hour of energy that's generated by a renewable energy facility, there's a megawatt hour of literally electricity that's generated, but then also one REC, one renewable energy certificate that is tracked on PJM's grid through the GAT system, the Generation Attributes Tracking System. And so this is a fungible commodity. And so these RECs are really the signal, the proof that a megawatt hour of renewable energy has been generated. And so if you wanted to offset 100% of your electric bill, you would simply look at the number of megawatt hours that you're using, and then you could simply buy that same number of megawatt hours of RECs. And that's how you're buying renewable energy. Now again, please ask me questions. It's a very intangible thing.
So if you're comparing it to a megawatt generated by a non-renewable source,
Right.
Fill in the blank, oil, whatever it is, that megawatt would have 0 REC and 1 megawatt of electricity, correct? Because it's not a renewable, it didn't generate any renewable energy certificate, right?
Correct.
And you're probably going to go into this, but there's a value assigned to the REC,
Right.
by the government, or is it by the market?
Right. It's by the market, and so what the government does is sets a renewable portfolio standard. So the government will say, we are going to require that all load-serving entities, and so community energy is a load-serving entity, all the utilities really are the traditional load-serving entities, any competitive supplier is a load-serving entity. They are required to deliver a certain percentage of their electricity through renewable energy, and that's from the renewable portfolio standard. So the state of Pennsylvania will say, hey, we want to get to 0.1% solar. So 0.1% of all of our solar generated this year is generated from solar. That's what we want. But then the mechanism they use to get there is through the renewable energy certificates. And so the more solar that's generated, or the more wind that's generated, then it gets easier for the utilities to buy these RECs, and then they get cheaper. But the less solar or wind that's being generated, the more expensive they get. And so then the more expensive they get, that incentivizes more construction to happen. People then go build the projects, et cetera.
And
Now,
it would obviously also, the price would also fluctuate depending on how much the government is saying you need to supply
Right.
through renewable energy.
Right.
So if they increase that percentage, the demand for RECs goes up, the price
of
goes
course.
up.
Yep. And then the other important thing to note here is that any voluntary purchases, anybody who purchases RECs that's not a load serving entity is additive. So it's not like you're just putting money towards the state's goal. Meaning if you buy a REC, it is above and beyond the state's renewable portfolio standard. And so really at the end of the day, I mean, the state's goal is to get to 0.5% solar, for instance, by 2021. And so really the question is whether we think that's enough. If so, then, hey, don't do anything. If you think it should be higher, our goal is to get to 10% in the next 8 years, then the way to do that is through voluntary purchases.
Voluntary purchases and also raising the standard.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think that there is that would be fantastic. The standard, there's a bill in place, I think it's in the House, where they're considering raising it from 0.5% to 1.5%. Every little bit helps. Clearly, if
that-
they raised it to 10%, awesome, then that would make
How
it a
does,
lot
how
easier.
does that 0.5% compare to other states? Is that typical? Is it high, low?
It's fairly low.
Well, it's the lowest in the region,
It's
right?
certainly in the region. So the largest is California, followed by New Jersey. And New Jersey's is, gosh, I wish I had the number, but it's manyfold. I don't want to quote it, but it's manyfold higher. Massachusetts just raised theirs from a goal of 1,400 megawatts to 1,600 megawatts. And right now, currently, Pennsylvania is at 204 megawatts, current installed capacity for solar. So it's definitely lower than the surrounding areas. The cool opportunity for Pennsylvania is that we are completely deregulated. And so we have choices, we have options. Yeah.
And most states, I mean, a lot of states don't even have an RPS. So. A lot of states don't even have an RPS. So, I mean, yeah, it's only 0.5%, but, you know, we at least have one here.
Great. Any other questions right now? There's some more things that I can go into on RACs, costs, all of that, but just to pause for a moment, I'd be curious to hear from the folks here. What are your goals?
Well, I actually have a question. If I just thought of
definitely.
it,
Fire away.
you were saying that we purchased a certain amount through PICO through community energy.
Right.
Is Radnor still using wind energy, or is that done now because PICO wind's done? We have no wind energy right now? Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So the last purchase of wind energy was in January of this year.
I mean, I think our goals, if you went to hear one person's view, is to try to find an affordable source of green energy for at least a partial green energy for the township.
Yeah.
But affordability is key and greenness is key.
Okay.
Yep, I was going to say exactly that, and we talked about setting a percentage goal for reduction of greenhouse gases
Yep.
in our greenhouse gas action plan. We've been tasked to do that, but we have yet to set that goal.
Yep.
So we don't have a metric ton kind of a goal yet.
Right.
So a reduction is what we're looking for.
Great.
And, I think just to emphasize, I think that we'd like to be ambitious, but we would like to know what the trade-offs and the options are, and frankly what the dollars look like in various choices. So this is very helpful to get this kind of roadmap.
Definitely.
And I would just say that for me, I share the goal of purchasing as much of our energy from clean sources as the township. And originally in developing the greenhouse gas emissions inventory and then developing the climate action plan, the idea was that, we could, the township, the municipality could show some leadership for residents. They could be, learn as Radnor took this step. And I just feel as if, we need to explore how through, contracting for it, that we could bring the price down, because having some kind of a commitment on the part of the township might result in that. And also, in our overall objectives, we sought to find ways to save money through, saving energy, expenditures of energy in other places could free up some funds to put towards green power. So
Right.
the overall is what we're aiming at.
Could I also, I totally agree with that. I also would like to anticipate, some questions that we might get if we were advocating for this. Obviously, we've already highlighted, there's a dollars and cents aspect of it. But I think there's also a question that some people have about RECs and about whether, you buy a REC, is it really having an impact on the environment? It's a little bit abstract, and I think it would be great to hear from you guys who are on the front lines of actually building solar farms and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
To play devil's advocate, what do you say to the person who says, "Come on, guys, we know the energy is being produced by the normal places, and they're how does this? What's the link between buying 100,000 or whatever RECs and better environment?"
Right. I am so glad that you bring that up. A lot of customers don't. So happy to talk about that. I think it sounds like the two main threads then are really, how do we maximize our impact at the lowest cost possible, right? So, okay. And so that's really helpful, though, to hear from you all. I mean, Josh, Derek, and I spoke, but at the same time, just to get the views from everybody, so we're not kind of guessing here what everybody's interested in. And that really helps set the context for us. So I'm just going to put up a slide, talk a little bit about REC costs today, some of the different options out there, and then also, Sloan, talk about the tangibility piece. That's really important to us. And again, just to revisit, you all currently use about 3,223 megawatt hours a year. So I'm going to have some percentages on the next slide, and it's all based on the percentage of that usage. So the first question really to answer, really the two options are along geographic boundaries. So you have a choice of buying local or buying national. If you're buying local RECs, it means that you're buying renewable energy certificates to offset your usage from power plants, renewable energy facilities that are located in Pennsylvania. If you open that up to the national geography, you can get wind RECs from anywhere. Largely, the cheapest ones come from Oklahoma and Texas. To your point, Sloan, community energy's interest is in largely Pennsylvania. We're based here, and so that's what we try to do the most. It is the most tangible. We can point to wind projects that we help to develop that is making our air cleaner. That said, I want to give you all the most information possible. And so understanding that, hey, maybe we want to get to 100% sooner, you could blend and say, hey, we're going to do partial Pennsylvania wind and partial national so that we can also do something about climate change, but we're going to include the local to clean up our local air as well. Just to put those numbers out there for right now, and again, this is indicative pricing. REC pricing changes over time, and so we work pretty closely with our colleague Katie, and what she does is literally goes out and secures a contract. Earlier on this year, for instance, PA wind was around $8 per megawatt hour, and it skyrocketed over the course of the year. Right now, it's at $20 a megawatt hour.
Is that because of demand?
It's because of I should get Katie in here to talk about it. It's kind of fascinating stuff. I asked her the same question a few weeks ago. I was like, are we actually changing the market? Are we pushing it up? Is it us and Green Mountain and others that are changing this? And she said, no, there's some other factors at play here. So, I think it definitely is supply and demand at the base of it. But where the demand is coming from for PA wind, I mean, it could also be a supply thing if there's a down year on wind RECs, if the wind farms aren't producing as much. And so there are both levers come into account. Yeah.
Is that price publicly available? Is that something you can see, or is that something that only industry people get to see?
Yeah, companies tend not to put this information online because it changes so rapidly. So the short answer is really no. And then when it's what usually is public is, and we can get into this in a moment, where a lot of folks will purchase renewable energy through a competitive supplier, and then you're buying your electricity and your renewable energy certificates bundled together. Those prices are public, and we put those prices out there for our customers. But when it's just RECs, it's tough. And when it's bundled with electricity, usually what happens is the way that companies deal with that is by adding a bit of a cushion, because these prices really do shift.
Can we just put that into perspective a little bit?
Yep.
A megawatt hour, Radnor is paying, what, $100?
Yep. And I guess, so per megawatt hour, it'd be $20 per megawatt hour if it was Pennsylvania wind, and $1.75 per megawatt hour if it was national wind. And then just to really simple chart here, just so you could see, hey, if we were to do 10% through all Pennsylvania wind RECs, it would be a little over $6,000. If it was 10% through national wind, only $500. So you can see, hey, if we really just want to maximize carbon impact around the country, we can get there without spending all that much money on the national wind side. But then, hey, if it's about local clean air, then it's going to be a bit more.
But just take a step back.
Yeah, sorry.
$20 per megawatt hour is the REC cost.
Yes.
How much is the electric cost that Radnor's paying right now?
Got it. About $80 per megawatt hour. And if that
About
also
80.
changes every 3 months.
So buying PA wind with PECO's pricing would increase it by about 25%, our electric costs.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Correct. Sorry, I didn't
No, it's all right.
understand the question you were asking the first time.
And just to, I don't know if you're going to get to it, but Sloan, back to your question, just to be clear, and if this is clear, then, stop me. But, when you are sourcing national wind, we're still burning the coal in Pennsylvania. So it's not doing really anything for Pennsylvania's air. Overall, nationally, you are putting renewable energy into a grid somewhere, in Texas in particular, but, Pennsylvania, we're one of the third highest polluters, greenhouse gas emitters in the state, or I'm sorry, in the country. And so, it's definitely important. We have about 28 coal plants. So that's the importance of sourcing from local. Reduces acidification of streams, the greenhouse gas emissions in Pennsylvania. So, sorry, I don't know if.
No worries. No worries.
Just make it clear.
Any other questions at this point?
This sort of relates to the pricing again. So back when Pico Wind was available, that was a block.
Right.
That's essentially you're just buying RECs, right?
It was the same. This is the same exact thing. So the PECO
Right.
Wind program was literally the same thing as the PA Wind.
Uh-huh.
The only difference is that through the PECO Wind, it was $25 per megawatt hour. And currently, I just talked to Katie this morning. She said, okay, indicative pricing today would be $20 per megawatt hour.
Okay, but I also understand that some other competitive suppliers, as you said, they sell the RECs and the electricity itself bundled.
Correct.
So you're just paying $9 whatever. Isn't it a kilowatt hour?
It's yeah. We talk about this in terms of megawatt hours, but if you wanted to put it into terms of kilowatt hours, you just divide it by 1,000.
All right, so just so I understand, so some suppliers are selling it bundled, but you are not.
We actually can do that. And
You
that
can,
was, I wanted
okay.
to make sure that the REC concept was just out there so folks knew about it. We are also a competitive electricity provider. So if you wanted to, you can simply buy the RECs outright. You would look at your previous historical usage and basically purchase a block. If you wanted to match it exactly to your existing electricity usage, we could do that. You could switch over any number of accounts to community energy. Your electricity would still be distributed to you through PECO. And there are really two parts to an electric bill. One side is the distribution side. It's really paying for the poles and wires for the electricity to be delivered to you. and then there's the generation charge, which is where the electricity is being generated. And community energy can deliver that. And our rate would be the same exact rate that PECO's offering to you today. And then if you wanted to mix in the RECs with that, we could bundle that in there.
So then sort of a follow-up question.
Yeah.
When I've looked for residential purposes at different competitive suppliers, some of them, even though they were green, were cheaper than PECO.
Right.
Would your bundled product be cheaper than non-green power?
The answer to that is no. And the reason is twofold. If you were to look at those rates, you'll notice two things about them. One, they're going to include the national green as opposed to the local. And so I can guarantee you if they included the local, it would be higher. Either that or they're going to go out of business within a year, and a lot of these folks do. And then the second thing that you'll see is it'll be a variable price as a residential customer. So we do have a variable price product, and there are great companies out there that offer variable price. In fact, your utility is variable. It changes every 3 months. But what a lot of companies will do is lock somebody in when it's lower, and then 3 months down the road to recoup slowly, they'll increase it over time.
Any 1 or 2 year fixed products?
Right, and I've been banging on that, and so I want to find that. And the trick with it is you have to get somebody to back you up to hedge out, otherwise you're taking on too much risk. So the short answer is no. What we would offer to do is say, hey, PECO's rate is going to change every 3 months. We'll just match what PECO's rate is 3 months, so there's no difference. And that way we feel like, okay, PECO's going to have to take on the same challenge. If they're under in one period, then they're going to have to raise it the next. And that allows us to basically move with the market, minimize that risk, but again, offer to a township, hey, this is the exact same thing you would have been paying to PECO otherwise. Yeah. And then if you look at the fixed price products that are out there, they're typically like a cent above what you're paying during the low period of the year, and then a cent below what you're paying during the high year. So PECO's rate, for instance, has fluctuated between 10.39 cents and 8.61 over the last year. And so if you look at a fixed rate product, it's often at like 9.2. So if you look at it when your rate is 8.61, okay, great. It's higher. If you're looking at it during a period when PECO's rate is 10.39, okay, now it's lower. Yeah.
Are your rates for, municipal entities the same as the rates that one would see if we looked at PA Power Switch or something for residential customers?
No, actually. You're in a different rate class. So PECO, you'll be paying a little bit less usually. And so PECO has a different rate for all the different rate classes, and each of your accounts, in fact, will most likely have different rates. So if it's a general service 101 versus a general service 107, it'll be slightly different.
You were meaning that the rates for the municipality would be lower than the residential customer rate?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And that's just an economies of scale?
Actually, it's because of load profile. So it's when the electricity is being used. So an electron that's generated at 4 in the afternoon is generally more expensive than one that's generated at 2 a.m. because the demand for electricity is a lot higher at 4 in the afternoon when everybody's cranking up their heat versus at night when we're using a lot less. Electricity is a bit cheaper. Yeah. It's a terribly fascinating and complex industry. So it's,
Could I, are you done with your, or are you just?
I was just going to say, I think he's going to get into some
Okay.
pretty
Why
interesting
don't we do
stuff
that?
coming up here, and let's give him a chance to round out this so we can understand what our questions are, and
Right.
then we can come out in a little bit.
Yeah, this is sort of really the fun stuff for us, and it gets at your point, Sloan. The thing that interests community energy the most is seeing new renewable energy get built. There's no better time than when our customers come out to the Keystone Solar Farm and we actually get to show it to them. Most of the time, it's Derek and me and the others on our outreach team out at events telling people about this very intangible thing, much like we've had this conversation over the last half an hour about RECs and electricity, and you can't really feel it. And so we get excited when we actually see projects like the one just down the road at Eastern get implemented. And so that's the cool thing about community energy. We don't just market renewable energy. We're the only one, in fact, in Pennsylvania and really the whole Northeast that both markets renewable energy but also builds. So we've built 700 megawatts of wind over the last decade, and over the last 3 years, we've developed 50 megawatts of solar. And again, when we really think about climate change and the issues that face us, we're just not going to get there without actually developing the stuff. And so what we're really excited about is through the customers that we have, making local solar projects happen. So great, it's fantastic that we have the Keystone Solar Project. We can go visit that from time to time, but again, that's still even an hour away. So how do we get something done locally? And so with the customers that we have in Philadelphia, we're making this solar project happen in northern Philly, and next year we'll make another one happen with those customers, and the year after that another one happen. And so that's the difference between us and PECO. With this electricity offer, the RECs that you're buying are currently purchasing 100% renewable energy for those RECs. That's great. But above and beyond that, we take 100% of our profits and reinvest it back into the company to develop more renewable energy. So that's really above and beyond. So another renewable energy marketer will take those profits and put it back into getting more customers. We'll do some of that, but we'll also really say, no, we're building new projects. So if we can get to usually right around the 1,000 threshold, if we have 1,000 residential customers, we can put a local project up in the community, and we can make it economical. We can bridge the gap to make it economic for somebody to sign up to purchase the power from the solar array at a competitive rate instead of a more expensive rate. And so that's something we're excited about. We would love to see a solar project at the Radnor Fire Company or at the elementary school. We've got a bunch of educational modules and whatnot to put in there. So I think that's ultimately our goal. I think that's really where you see the most local impact, not just buying renewable energy from a remote source.
Crazy idea, but am I right in thinking you said that the township building is using about 400 homes worth of
Right.
Power annually? 1,000 homes gets you enough to install a facility and make it competitive with what the residents in the township would pay
Yeah.
for non-renewable energy. Is that right? So
For
so-
a 25 kilowatt array. If we wanted to go larger than that, then we'd have to.
for I'm
Sorry.
not sure what you mean by that.
Yeah, so that's for a specific solar array of a specific size. If we were going to do a giant facility, then we would definitely need more. But that would be about 100 solar modules, like the 4x6 foot
Okay.
modules.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could talk
Right.
about this, but it sounds like township plus some
Right.
residents might be enough to help or maybe even equalize
Right.
the cost.
Or another big organization.
Or another big organization.
Exactly.
In
Yeah,
the-
if you
in
can
the
get
area.
anchor. Yeah, and I think the thing that would make it more feasible is we're still wrapping our arms around the commercial side of it. So if it was Radnor plus 600 residential customers, we fully understand that cost curve. It might be a bit different if it was all commercial, but certainly if Radnor was there as an anchor tenant, and then we found 600 other residents or small businesses to chip in as well, then we could make a local project happen, which I think would be really exciting. Yeah. And we have an outreach team that goes to festivals and fairs and whatnot. We have people, it's not just Derek and me, who can go out, be in the community to conduct that kind of campaign. Yeah.
And I would bet you guys have a certain number of Radnor residents who are
Already. Yeah.
So
Yeah, we'd
it's
have to
really the
go back and-
differential,
Yeah.
how many more would need to come on to justify a,
Right.
so, interesting.
And I think you had a question before? Okay. That is the end of our presentation. Happy to.
Yeah, let me ask, let me see if I can wrap my mind around this. You had, in a couple slides back, had said, community energy would be pleased to supply power to the township at
Yep.
the same price, basically, that they're paying PECO right now.
Yep.
Yeah, if we made that switch and did nothing else,
Right,
did nothing else,
right.
would that provide any benefit to the environment, to, like, what are we
Right.
getting when we do that?
Exactly, and that's where
Without
we need
buying
to be,
RECs.
Right, without buying RECs up front, you're getting nothing at first, and then over time, if we can get to enough people, we will build solar in the future, and we will retire the RECs from the facility back to you and others in the customer base. So for the project in North Philly, for instance, people sign up at the same rate as the utility. We got to enough people. We're building the project. That's going to be enough to deliver those people with about 0.5% of solar RECs for their total electricity usage, which is 10 times as high as the total solar carve-out for 2014 for the state. So basically, the argument is, hey, it might sound low, but we're actually, for you guys, we're doing 10 times as better than the state, and we're doing so without charging you any extra money. That's really the value proposition. The trick of it is it doesn't come right away. If you want impact and want it to be clear and simple, dip your toe in the water, RECs is the simplest way to do it because it's RECs that you're buying from existing wind farms, existing solar farms. And then if you wanted to, and by the way, I didn't put up Pennsylvania SRECs in there, but they're about $25 a megawatt hour. I should have done that. But if you want to see the new tangible development happen, there's no way to buy a REC from it right away because the REC isn't being generated until the solar is actually implemented, until it's actually generating renewable electricity.
So you'd be buying power from the grid.
Yeah,
So this would be the same power that
Same
PICO
power, right.
would be buying.
exactly.
So there's no benefit,
No environmental
environmental
from it,
benefit whatsoever,
unless you include the RECs.
unless you include the RECs.
Right.
And the link between buying a REC and somebody putting a shovel in the ground and building a green energy facility, I'm still a little bit hazy on that, and I guess
Right.
I'll take a crack at it, and then you can probably correct
Yeah,
it. But
definitely.
but as I would think it through, if I went out and bought a REC myself, I would incrementally increase the demand for RECs. That would incrementally increase the price of the REC,
Yep.
right? And therefore, that REC is more valuable.
Right.
The people who are in community energy shoes, thinking about, can we build a facility? Is it profitable? Is it worthwhile to build a
Right.
facility? Look at the price
Right.
and say yay or nay, depending on how high that price is.
Right.
So if it's high enough, you guys said, well, we can build a facility for X
Right.
dollars of a
Right.
REC. Therefore, it's above that, therefore, we're going to build it.
Right.
So residents who are buying this are helping, and because I assume you get paid, your revenue is literally linked to the RECs. You're getting paid through the RECs.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep. It's directly feeding in to support those projects. So that's sort of the 201 level. And then the super advanced
Yeah.
level of it is that any renewable energy facility generates a REC, even if it's a hydropower plant that was built in 1950. And so this is where in 2013 we have a challenge that we didn't have in 2003. 2003, all the projects were new. So all the incremental demand was great because it supported new projects that hadn't paid themselves off. Now the RECs can be coming from a wind farm that was built in 2003, 10 years later. That wind farm has paid itself off. And so does that wind farm, especially when the fuel is free, need additional financial support? There's a question there. And so all of these RECs, all the wind RECs generated in PA go into the same bucket, same thing for solar. And so the advantage, I would say, of supporting a new farm, a new wind farm or solar farm, is that it's really, truly encouraging that project to happen where the money is needed the most. And that's what excites me about the solar builder offer, the encouraging the new development, is that really what it's doing is we're saying, really we're making a prepayment on the RECs, and then we're promising to retire the RECs to the customer base over time, because we want those dollars going into the upfront cost as opposed to coming 10 years from now.
Great.
I just think you're completely right. The RECs are making a difference, but not as not as much pound per pound as they used to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know, sort of, in terms of land, how much would it take? So suppose you did get 1,000,
Right.
or, Radnor Township plus 600 within
Right.
Radnor Township, where would you put a solar?
Yeah, this would
facility?
actually be a 25 kW array that would be a rooftop facility, most likely. And that would take about, usually 200 square feet, it would take about 5,000 square feet. Not a terrible amount of space for a project of that size. And the reason for that is twofold. There's a huge gap of funding that we would have to raise to do a very large system. And then also in this area, land space is pretty valuable, and the permitting is pretty treacherous as well. So the angle I would take would be a rooftop system in a highly visible place that's truly valued by the community. Usually that means a school or a municipal building, but usually it's a place that's truly like a communal space for everyone. Yeah.
I have two more questions for you about, related to pricing. So maybe I missed this, but if we do the whole thing where we buy the 400 homes worth as the township and then get 600 other entities involved,
Yep.
and a solar array is built, does everybody's price then go down below the PICO rate, or do we still keep paying full freight?
Yeah, those would be separate. What would happen with the solar facility is we would find an entity like the school or whatnot and have a separate power purchase agreement that would be linked to the solar array. And so that would be, usually it's a 20-year agreement to purchase the energy that's being produced by the solar array. And if we were to do it without the extra financial support, that would usually cost folks, about 12 or 13 cents per kilowatt hour for 20 years, versus what you're paying now is 8 cents. And what we would be able to offer, really what we're saying here is we'd be able to offer the price people are paying today for the solar energy from that facility.
The price
Does that make
people are
sense?
paying today for solar energy, or PICO, like a PICO rate for solar energy?
Exactly, just for the
Competitive
energy.
competitive rate.
Exactly, just for the energy. Usually what it is like, let's say somebody's paying 8 cents today, then we would say, hey, we're going to sign you up at 7.5%, and that's going to increase by 2%, per year over 20 years. But generally, electricity rates increase at 3%. So you're locked in at a rate that's A, lower today, and B, you can expect to be lower over the course of a 20-year period.
So all parties involved, meaning all power purchasers, are essentially going to be paying market rate
Right.
for grid power, or for like what a normal grid power would cost.
Right.
But there would be environmental benefit
Right,
for everybody
exactly,
involved.
Exactly. All of the asterisks coming from that solar array would get spread back to everybody. And then the school or the other local entity would basically be donating its roof. And then it would be getting a demonstration facility, really, that they could use for their students or whatnot. Yeah.
And this is called the Solar Builder Program. Is that an
Yes.
official name from
Yep.
Community Energy?
Solar
Because
Builder.
I don't think it was on any of your slides here, so it's kind of important that we put a name to that, because
Yeah, definitely.
It's
Yeah.
definitely interesting, and to me, it's I feel like I'm coming at this from three directions. I feel, boy, I'd like to create some new local green production. I'd also like to save some metric tons of carbon dioxide somehow, and I don't want to spend anything to do it. Is there any way we could feel good about bundling this solar builder program with National Wind?
Yeah.
So we could maybe achieve a metric ton reduction goal of our own.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know.
I think the exciting thing there is that's where a lot of opportunity is. If you do the national component, that is the lowest cost to just purely reduce metric tons of carbon being released into the atmosphere globally. And so really the impact on your electric bill, if you wanted to do it 100% and have the news article in the paper that said, hey, Radnor Municipal Township is 100% renewable, it would be $5,000. I mean, again, this is indicative. We'd have to have Katie lock a contract, but I expect we'd be able to get something for around that price, about $5,600, it'd be 100%. And then if you wanted to encourage the local aspect, if you then added in community energy being the electric supplier, that would push us further, a lot of the way there actually, in terms of being able to support a local solar project. And that could help deliver the local component. I would also personally be willing to work with anybody here to identify a site. We could put up a website online that said, hey, here's the site that we've identified in Radnor. When we get to this many people, we're going to be able to offer an attractive power purchase agreement. And then we could conduct a community campaign and see how we do with it.
You said some other competitive suppliers, well, I think I understand this right, that some of the other suppliers that are maybe offering national wind instead of local wind, that they may have lower prices than PECO, but that you're not offering that right now. If we went with you as our supplier, it would just be, for now, whatever PECO has at PECO's rates.
Right.
Is there any reason why you're not offering something that would include some national wind that would be a little bit cheaper for now until, the second step of
For sure.
the big solar project?
It's really a question of risk. And so our company philosophy over the years, and this has been for RECs as well as electricity, is to not chase the lowest cost unless we can be 100% sure that we can deliver it. So we would only be willing to offer a lower price if we went out and bought a hedge from like a Constellation or a Shell that was at that price or lower. Because it's actually like a dishonest product if we go to you and say, hey, we're going to deliver it at this price when we are not 100% sure that we can go and access the energy at that cost. And so basically it comes down to gambling. And we're not willing to make that bet because we've just seen too many companies go sideways if they make that bet. And I mean, that ultimately is what it comes down to. The other thing is, well, no, that's pretty much it. No.
The prices that you mentioned for various things, does that include the increase in PECO prices that's coming in the next few months?
Right. So we would literally move. Their rate moves every 3 months. Ours would go in line. So if theirs went from 8 to 8.5, ours would go from 8 to 8.5. If theirs went from 8.5 to 7.5, ours would go from 8.5 to 7.5.
Sorry.
Or sorry, no.
Do you know how much we spend a year on electricity?
So we would have to multiply. We could figure it out really quickly. So the $80, and then you've got distribution. So say it's $12 times the 3,000. So that would be, yeah.
36,000.
Yeah. Is that?
No.
Is that just not right?
I don't think that doesn't sound right.
Oh, sorry. That's 120 is what you should do. So because it's $120 per megawatt hour. So $120 times. So it'd be more like $360,000.
$360,000.
Yeah.
So what strikes?
Yeah, 30 sounded low.
What's that?
30 did sound low.
So what strikes me is that, well, that's a lot of money. First of all, it's $250,000 on electric, and $5,600 is not a lot of money.
Right.
I mean, it's just semantics here is what I'm driving at. But I mean, there's probably a way we could bury $5,600 in into the cost of. So what I'm driving at is, boy, it would be easy to make this fly in Radnor if there was no cost at all to this project.
Right.
Yeah,
If that were
that's
the
what I'm
case,
driving
we
at.
could get to 100% renewables and it would happen easy. And oh man, I would love that universe. We'll get there. We'll get there.
But what I'm saying is, I'm loving this idea of where we get we get a certain percentage of national wind where we can achieve our goal, and we sign up for the solar builder program and try to get some residences going. I mean, this sounds really kind of cool. I think it's something we could get behind. $5,600 probably not a lot to sell. I mean, it would be too hard to get that through. But if that was zero, it would be really easy.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and some of what we're looking at are ways that we could save some money, for example, with reduced fuel use and that kind of thing.
Right, that
I'm
might be
pretty
a way,
interested.
that's a good point. I mean, maybe it's a way that we would use that concept of a green savings account. So if we could, even if it's sort of an unofficial account, we were sort of tracking, we save $500 on gasoline and this on something else. And so we would, make the case that the books are balancing even though we're spending $5,000 more, it's still net. So that's one approach. And I guess the other thing is I assume, well, maybe I should ask, are there any grants, are there any programs that help municipalities or residents offset this additional cost, or is there not really anything that people can?
Oh, for rec purchases, no.
No, okay. And if people, if you do put a solar array in, it generates electricity. There's a cost up front, but it's going to generate electricity.
Right.
And so that's, I guess this is the question of the build project, the cost and whether there's any kind of offset to the $5,000 or the $5,000 to $40,000, whatever the number is. But it doesn't sound like there's an offset that you'd say, well, you put this in and then you offset your
Yeah, and that would
costs.
be, so from a, we would take the SRECs, the solar renewable energy certificates produced by any solar array that we put in, and retire them. And when we mean that, we're meaning we would allocate them to all the folks in Radnor who had signed up. And so that would mean that 40% of the SRECs from a solar project would go to Radnor Township.
Is that
Does that
sort
make
of,
sense?
in plain English, does that mean those folks see a reduction in their
Carbon footprint. Yep.
carbon footprint or their costs?
Their carbon footprint.
Carbon
It means they have to pay nothing for those RECs, because we're just going to say we're giving those RECs. We're basically saying, hey, if we get to this many customers through this program, we're going to build a local solar array.
Mhm.
And the reward really for the community is you're not paying anything for those RECs now that are being produced. As long as that solar array is in there, it's producing environmental value for the community at no additional cost.
So, because I also didn't really fully understand what you were saying before about once the solar array is up, and you said something about a 20-year period of market rate. Who does that go to?
Right.
How do? Oh, yeah. Again, are there any cost savings as a result of this whole endeavor?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was kind of itching to get at while you were going there.
Yeah.
And, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Yeah, when you look at a 20-year power purchase agreement from the 25 kilowatt array, generally you see utility rates rise at, somewhere between 3 and 5% annually, nationally. That's what like the nation electric inflation rates are. And so generally in a PPA, really, we would see when we get there, but generally what we're able to do is offer that rate at a lower, if not a fixed rate, but a lower inflation rate. So yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to recover that initial cost of, the $5,600, for example, for the 100% national wind, that's absolutely somewhere where you can recover that cost. And also too, I just did the math real quick. What it would look like as far as a per kilowatt hour rate for the township to add that $5,600 to go 100% renewable through national wind. Josh, to get at what you were saying, is that something you can bury? It's $5,600. It's on the books regardless. But and this is an estimate from about 12 cents per kilowatt hour, it would go to 12.17 cents. So that's the incremental increase from that amount of money. But yeah, it's absolutely something that you could get back from that solar array through the power purchase agreement.
So the 20-year period of being at the lower increases each year, does that mean the township for its entire energy bill would be locked in for 20 years at this lower rate, and all of these 400 or 600 other people?
The size of that array would produce a very, very small fraction. So it would be probably about 30 megawatt hours when you guys are using 3,000.
And like you said, that would probably be a power purchase agreement that would be with the entity on whose roof this thing was installed, probably, right?
Right.
So
Right.
if it was on Radnor High School, probably the school district would be the one setting up this PPA with you guys.
Right.
And they would see that,
Right. Right.
locked-in rate, not the people who
Right.
are the 1,000 residences.
And this is where that separate energy value in REC really comes in, because it's like, okay, we can see where the electrons are going, but the RACs, everybody could claim their portion. So we would be able to allocate 40% of the RECs to the township, for instance, if you represented 40% of the way to get us to being able to build it. Yeah.
Are you aware of any townships that have done that? Or, well, not that, meaning, have said, okay, we want to be 100%?
Oh, yeah.
Any in Pennsylvania, any that
Gosh, I'm
around
trying
here?
to think. I'd have to look back in the Salesforce database. A lot of this was done before my time, and I just haven't
Yeah.
worked on this side. But I know Byron Woodman has signed up a number of municipalities, and for instance, UPenn has been, gosh, they signed up for like a 10-year agreement. At one point, Carnegie Mellon is 100%.
Okay,
So there are definitely major institutions that have done it.
that have done it.
Yeah, and a decade ago when it was all PA, when they were spending a lot more, and then when
Right.
the market has gone national, and so universities have actually cut back, but they're still sticking with 100%.
And, just to go back to making the case, somebody says, we're spending $5,000
Yeah.
to do what?
Right.
Can you, in probably clearer language than I could,
Yeah.
could you just tell them exactly how that's helping the environment?
Right.
How would you put it?
Yeah, I would put it in that you guys were currently generating more than 3,000 megawatt hours from coal and natural gas plants, and we can generate 3,000 megawatt hours from wind instead. We can make sure that that is getting put in the grid instead of the coal and natural gas. And we can do it for $5,600.
So, but wait a minute. All those electrons, all that electricity is still coming in to the grid from
Right.
the coal and the natural gas power plant. You're not stopping it at the source.
Right.
Um,
Right.
What's the link? Is it that sort of price pressure link, or is it
Yeah.
more direct?
And the way that I put it for folks is, the United States, we've got a giant, the grid is really just a giant mug of water, giant cup of water. And there's being water put into that cup from all different kinds of power plants. And then you've got 300 million people sipping out of it from different straws. And so, yeah, you're sipping out of that same cup of water where there's that sea of electrons. But do you want to pay for clean water to go in, or do you want to pay for dirty water to go in? And so, hey, we're going to pay for the clean water to go in. And if everybody did that, then everybody would be drinking clean water.
Yeah, I might actually dispute a little bit what you just said, your hypothetical thing where those electrons are still going into the grid. Well, no, not really, because we are saying our 3,000 megawatts have to come from wind. They have to, okay? So the mug can only be so full, right? So the mug has to stay at the national demand limit, right? Or usage limit, or whatever you want to say. And then, so if we say our 3,000 is coming from wind, that means that 3,000 is not coming from someplace else.
Right. And the amazing thing would be if what happened if overnight, like 3 times the number of people started demanding renewable energy. All of a sudden, you're right, that pressure would happen. The REC prices would go up, and the industry would have to scramble to figure out how do we make sure that these clean electrons
How do we
being
make more
delivered.
wind plants?
Right,
and
Right,
solar
exactly,
plants?
and bring the cost back down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would.
Guys, I think I could keep on talking about this for hours. It's very complex, like you said, and but yet I think we made some pretty good I've made a lot of progress in coming to an understanding of how these markets all interact. I appreciate it. And I think we can continue to address our questions to you, via email and whatnot.
What would be next steps, and do we need to get a request for proposal? Do we need to put some actual numbers around it? What do you think? Where are we?
Well, I've
Maybe
come a
it's
long
more-
way tonight
Yeah.
to come to a spot, but I think we probably still need to have a discussion about this.
So a green team issue, right? I mean,
Right.
Ben?
Well, and a finances issue and a Radnor issue.
Yeah, we're currently working on it. We have to prepare an RFP to move forward.
So have you guys started working on this RFP yet?
We've started working on it. The question is how much, I guess the percentage that we're working looking for to purchase, and whether or not we're actually going to continue the possibility of not purchasing green power, just from a financial standpoint, of whether or not that increased cost does make a difference.
And so you're in the process of sort of putting together an RFP, talking internally about what we think we'd be looking to purchase, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's great, and, I think it's encouraging, and, I think we might want to, express a view, because it's part of the green
Oh, yeah, I certainly think so. I think,
action plan.
yeah,
greenhouse
yeah, I think with our connection with the Green Team, the way we serve as liaisons, I think that's a good place for us to communicate, and we could probably communicate offline as well. Ben and Melissa also is helping with that too, right?
And we could pursue at the same time the possibility of partnering on a solar facility. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, I assume?
Sure. Yep.
And would that involve a capital outlay on the part of the township?
Well-
Suppose the township, I don't know how big this roof is, but suppose the township building were an appropriate spot.
Right.
How would that work financially?
So the way, there are a few options for getting solar projects done. One would be to cell phone and simply say, hey, we're going to put in all the upfront capital ourselves. The trick with that is, well, the pro of that, the advantage of that is you own all the output, and you, over 15, 20 years, you make a return on it. And then if the solar array is in there longer, you could actually do quite well over 30 or 40 years. The disadvantage is that as a municipal entity, I don't think, well, the payback is long, and I don't think you'd be able to take advantage of the investment tax credit, or in fact, I know you wouldn't be able to, which is worth 30% of the project. It's really only available to private entities. And so the other way you'd be able to do it would be through a power purchase agreement, where we would put out the capital outlay, we'd take out a loan from somebody, take the upfront cost off the table, and you would pay for the power over time. And again, without, well, and that's the thing, that's where we really do need the customers to be able to, basically what we do is for every customer that we get, we commit to making a $25 donation to the project. And so without that, then the solar project doesn't have the boost. And so the power purchase rate that you would do if you were just to do this, just the solar project standalone, would be something more around 12 or 13 cents, maybe even a little bit higher. And so that's going to be more expensive than what you're currently paying, and you'd be locked in to pay that for the 20 years. So, I mean, if we were at a more competitive rate there, standalone for solar, then we would just be out presenting that to people on its own.
Josh, I just wanted to note, I think, I mean, maybe the conversation has moved, but back a little while ago when we were beginning to work with the Green Team, we were kind of indicating that we wanted to help build the Pennsylvania renewable energy market. And so we had expressed somewhat of a preference for, an energy generator, generating from Pennsylvania. But, I mean, I think this is really intriguing, the possibility of, national renewable energy first, getting started potentially in that way, and then, growing our involvement with, with helping to build the Pennsylvania market. So I don't know if there's a need to clarify our preference with the Green Team, but I hope we'll, have further conversation about that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a good idea.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much
Thank
again
you.
for all your time. I know it was probably longer than you all expected.
No.
So,
It's
It
a
was
long,
interesting.
it's a long 8 minutes.
yeah, exactly. I think I had 5. Well, no, that's not true. I spent at least half an hour talking.
Great job.
Appreciate it. Ben, you could also step out if you want, but thanks for coming. You can stay and listen. We have some exciting stuff to talk about. I'd like to move into the work group reports, and on the Radnor Green Team, we have not met since July, so I will postpone any update on the Radnor Green Team for now. I think Melissa said she's trying to schedule one for October, I think. In sustainability, I'm going to turn this over to Sloan to talk about the resolution that you're proposing that we sign in support of Radnor's proposed stormwater ordinance.
Last spoke, there was a stormwater ordinance on the table proposed to create a dedicated fee to address a number of stormwater issues in the township. Since that point, there have been a lot of public forums and hearings and discussions and debates. Some changes have been made to the ordinance since that point. So I wanted to highlight the changes first. Specifically, the per unit fee has been cut substantially from $56 a unit to $29 a unit. A unit, to recall, is it's described in the ordinance in, I think it's section 4. It's based on the size of the residence, and the one unit is approximately a quarter of an acre, I think, and moves up to the largest billing unit is 4 units for approximately any residential unit that's greater than an acre. So if you think about your property, if you have approximately a quarter of an acre so you would pay approximately $29 a year. So it's not an enormous number, but it is a very important project. The other change that they made, and this is the Board of Commissioners made on Monday, was they decided to create an ongoing advisory committee to advise the board and the township as to which projects to focus on. And they decided that this was going to be a 7-person committee, and it was going to have a person representing each of the wards, each of the 7 wards. So it'll be geographically diverse in terms of who's serving on this advisory committee going forward. So I think those were the main changes made by the board. So the board made those changes. It's now required to re-advertise the ordinance and to let the public have, I think, another month before they can pass the ordinance officially. So it's in a public notice time frame right now. So those are the highlights of the changes. Just to review what this is all about, it's a very, I think, significant effort for the township to address the aging and not particularly efficient stormwater system that we have. We've got many miles of stormwater pipes and other systems already installed. They're 50 to 70 years old. They're not in great shape. There's a lot of pipes that are blocked and not properly functioning. So there's a lot of basically heavy lifting that needs to be done to bring it to really sort of reasonable operating condition, I think. And I did serve on the advisory committee, so we had many presentations about the condition of the system, and I came away convinced that it's really not doing a great job of the basics in terms of moving the water through the township in a way that doesn't cause flooding, meaning if it's done in an appropriate way, it can slow the movement of the water through the township by having structural features like retention basins and other things like this that can basically delay the impact of the water coming from a variety of sources. So that's just one example. There are many, many different types of structural features that can help. We haven't been putting those in. We haven't been maintaining the ones that we have, and so we see the result in frequent flooding. And really, it's a pretty major problem. It may not affect everybody every day. It definitely affects a number of people if they live near streams or other bodies of water. There are a number of people in Radnor who frequently have their basements flooded, streets flooded, cars moved. We've heard of people who have really been put in very scary situations by the flooding conditions. And maybe I should pause here and just see if folks have personal experience on this or have at least seen some of the rather dramatic examples of flooding that we've experienced. So let me stop there before we go further and just sort of see if folks have personal experiences on the flooding or the stormwater topic.
Yeah, I live on high ground, so I don't have it personally. We do have my wife and I have some friends that have a house on the creek south of the Willows. And, every time there's a big storm, there goes a bit more of their property.
Yeah.
The channel just keeps getting bigger and bigger and more incised. And so it's, and they've got a bridge that gets them to their property, and that's putting some amount of peril also. So.
In the center of town is a place that suffers, I think, pretty dramatically from flooding on a fairly frequent basis near the firehouse. And there have been news reports of people having to be rescued from their cars, and so I think this is, clearly an issue that has been, it's been studied a number of times. The township has done a series of reports, hired consultants and engineers to look at it. And I think there's, a lot of evidence that the system is in poor repair and could be made a lot better.
So is it appropriate to make a motion to adopt the resolution?
Well, I'd be happy to do that. Let me just read the resolution, and then I'd love to discuss it and get support. So the resolution is a resolution in support of this ordinance establishing a user fee for stormwater collection and management, and it reads, whereas Radnor Township has constructed and maintains a system of sewers, drains, basins, inlets, outfalls, and other infrastructure to collect and manage stormwater, and whereas the Radnor Environmental Advisory Council, the EAC, finds that excess stormwater volume can cause flooding and can threaten public health, safety, and the environment, and whereas Pennsylvania has experienced a 52% increase in the frequency of extreme rainstorms and snowstorms from 1948 to 2011, and the amount of precipitation released by the largest annual storm each year in Pennsylvania has increased by 23% in the same period. And the source of those facts is a Penn Environment study from the summer of 2012. Whereas a variety of improvements to Radnor's storm water system, including non-structural efforts such as rain gardens, is necessary. And whereas a proposed ordinance establishing a user fee dedicated to stormwater management would call on all Radnor landowners, including nonprofit institutions, to contribute to improving our stormwater system. Now, therefore, the EAC finds that the proposed stormwater fee ordinance is a fair and equitable approach to addressing a significant public safety and environmental issue. So I did want to highlight one of the major reasons for the ordinance as drafted and as, is that all the beneficiaries of the stormwater system, whether they're for-profit, nonprofit, taxpayer, or not a taxpayer, would contribute to the cost of maintaining and improving the system. Right now, 100% of the cost of the stormwater system is borne by the taxpayers. So there's an estimate that somewhere around 25% of the land owners would contribute under this proposed fee rather than tax, in addition to the current taxpayers. So that's one of the benefits of approving this fee. It's a broader base to contribute to the system.
And in fact, you did mention that those contributors, those non-tax contributors, are probably have a very significant
Many would.
impact on
So-
it. This is something that I could get behind for sure, and I would vote to support this resolution. I would make it. I don't know if you guys will make any comments to this. I was thinking the fourth paragraph here. You sort of suggest that you don't sort of. You suggest that improvements are necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I need to soften that or maybe clarify that just to say, well, that would be necessary to reduce excess stormwater volume, which is the cause of all these health, safety, and environment problems. Or you could say may reduce, or
Yeah.
I may soften that up a little bit.
I agree with that. And I think the ordinance, I read the whole ordinance, it makes a good case of, even though we're doing this, we're not promising there's not going to be any more problems. And so, just the wording here suggests like, okay, if we make these improvements are necessary, there's maybe a little bit of a suggestion that once we make these improvements, the problem's gone. And
Yeah.
it'll never be gone. So, I had sent some
I
wording
didn't get a
earlier
chance to read that,
today to
sorry.
Josh, and I forgot that you had put this together, but
No problem.
I'm happy to share that with you. But just the idea that these variety of improvements would, and the wording I use, and it's sort of the standard engineering term, is that it'll reduce the extent and frequency of flooding, right? So it's never going to stop happening because you never know how big a storm can get, and you can't design for the infinite storm. So. But as you build these systems, more and more water will be captured and delayed, and
Good.
so the frequency and the extent of the flooding.
I
will-
appreciate
So
that.
I can get you that wording.
Yeah,
and then the
I
other,
think I got it. It was, is necessary to reduce the extent and frequency of flooding.
right,
So.
right.
I
And I
think
had
that's
some wording in there. Rain gardens, they're great, but they're not a solution for the scale of our problem. Everybody in this township could put a rain garden on their property, and it wouldn't solve the problem. So.
there-
It says including there, so
Right,
it's,
right,
I mean,
and
in
so I
general.
think there's just a, way to,
Would you,
what I would say would be vegetated stormwater management systems, or you can call it green infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot of terms, but to me, a rain garden is really sort of something you put in a yard.
You just take out such as rain gardens and just leave it including non-structural efforts.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a question about timing, though. I certainly support this resolution in principle. I support the ordinance in principle, but isn't the ordinance still being worked on? I mean, I
Yeah.
had sent some comments about the definition of imperviousness.
Right.
And some other little typos and things. So isn't it a little premature, since this seems to refer to the proposed ordinance?
well, I would say that it's not premature. The ordinance has been, it was advertised, it was discussed on a number of occasions with the Board of Commissioners. On Monday, the Board of Commissioners was actually considering passing the ordinance, and there was a discussion about whether the fee per unit, which had been advertised at $56, should be reduced. And there was, discussion. The board decided to change that, and the township solicitor said, "You've changed something significant in the ordinance. It's not just, a typo or something, so you have to re-advertise the ordinance, and you actually cannot pass it until you've given another month to the township to comment. So what I would say is, and I actually forwarded your comments to the township on the ordinance. I think that the likelihood is very great that that the Board of Commissioners will pass the advertised ordinance at the, I guess that would be the mid-October Board of Commissioners meeting after 1 month has passed since they re-advertised the ordinance.
Is there some way we could just put in here saying we, as it was advertised in September, or with whatever version this is, we could say we're able to get behind version.
Proposed as of, September
Whenever the last meeting was.
24th. Right. Yeah, so does that address the point that we're talking about a specific proposed stormwater fee ordinance that is not official, it's not passed, it's still officially subject to if somebody came along and found some horrible problem with it, they could point that out, and perhaps it wouldn't pass, maybe it would be amended, it would be re-advertised and changed. If it was an immaterial change, a typo, something like that, I understood that kind of thing could probably be changed without having to re-advertise. So I guess to the question of, is it premature? No, because there's a live proposal before the Board of Commissioners that they will take a final, they could take a final vote on in about a month. It's not too late, on the other hand, in the sense that they haven't passed the whole thing and it's not officially adopted. So I think it's actually pretty good timing.
Yeah, it would seem that we would want to, if we're going to support it, that we do it before
Before they pass
the
it.
commissioners are passing
Right.
it. And I think, this last sentence is what we're really saying is we think it's fair and equitable approach.
Right.
So we're not, I don't know that we're specifically saying that, we're supporting every sentence in that
Right.
ordinance. We're saying
I
that
think
this is
that's
a
right.
good approach.
That's right. I'm sure there are other good approaches, but I think this is an important issue. I think it's one that's tough for the Board of Commissioners because, yes, it does feel like people's taxes are going up. It's not easy to do that. But I think this is a really important issue, a health and safety and environmental issue. And I think, as folks who are looking at environmental issues for the township, I think it's useful to speak in favor of this move. So that's the spirit of this resolution, sort of supportive of their potential action. So,
Any other comments?
if there are no other amendments or changes, I guess I got those changes, so I'll just describe it as amended, which the two amendments were Dan and your comment. I'm going to use Dan's language, which was in the fourth paragraph, is necessary to reduce the extent and frequency of flooding. And then in the proposal, in the definition of the proposed ordinance as advertised on September 24th, the date of the last board meeting. So those are the only two changes. So with that, I guess I'd ask if anybody would like to make a motion for.
That would be you.
I'll make the motion to approve this resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Unanimous approval. Thank you, Sloan. A lot of hard work. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
I think I stand a little corrected on the description of the units. If we look at page 5, it's section 4A, the units, the billable units range from 0 to 7,000 square feet of lot area. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think an acre is approximately
44.
44,
Well, that's that last number in that fourth category.
right.
Category, that
43,000.
43,560 is
So,
1 acre.
right, so when I said 1 unit, it's not a quarter of an acre, it's from 0 to 0.16% of an acre. So it's a little bit smaller than a quarter of an acre. A quarter of an acre lot would be in the 2-unit category, from 0.16 to 0.46, about a half an acre. So I just wanted to correct that.
Thank you, Sloan. Moving along to the open space and Radnor Birdtown work group reports and discussion.
Yeah.
Ann?
I'm sorry to say, I don't really have anything on the open space. Our last meeting was canceled, and I don't have any update there. The Birdtown group is meeting with some regularity, and one of our concerns is to try to raise the profile of Radnor's involvement with Birdtown. So one of the ideas that was bandied about at the last meeting that we had was to try to find some high-profile areas to create a better bird habitat and then sign them with the Birdtown signage. So I circulated an email to the group beforehand, and what I'd like to do is make the following motion. I'd move that the EAC would agree to partner with the Audubon Radnor Birdtown to explore ways to make the habitat around the township building more bird-friendly. And that's all we're really asking of the EAC at this point.
What would that involve?
Well, the first step would be to get someone down here from Audubon who's a bird habitat specialist and walk the grounds and kind of have him draw up a set of measures. And then if there were steps that could be taken, obviously, we would bring that back to the EAC to see what the EAC could do. There might be, there might be sort of labor opportunities to do planting. There also might be grant seeking, there might be grants that we would need to seek to improve the area. I really don't have any idea what he would come up with, but we would certainly involve the township people in those discussions, find out if Steve Norsini wants somebody from his group to kind of go around in the initial inspection or wait and get a list from Audubon. But Audubon does have habitat experts on staff that can come and help think through what would work.
Yeah, that sounds good, and especially if we have somebody from the township walking around through. It's, if there was something planned for a certain area, we wouldn't waste our time developing a beautiful bird habitat when it was actually going to be paved over with a parking lot,
Right.
Yeah, so
And also, there's always the concern of not wanting to saddle the township with something that they won't be able to maintain.
that sounds like a no-brainer. Anybody have any comments on that? I'm in favor. All in favor of the motion to partner with the Radnor Audubon Birdtown on this program?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, community environmental education and awareness. I'll just piggyback right off of that and say that the green team, so to speak, at Wayne Elementary School, part of their parent-teacher organization, we partnered with Radnor Birdtown and had some compost delivered to the Audubon Gardens, bird gardens at the elementary school. And I believe Ethan also did something similar. And we beautified and improved the bird gardens there.
Actually, I've been remiss. I think they're doing it this Saturday, and they would love anybody who could help to come out and help spread compost in the bird garden.
That's
area.
at Ethan.
At Ethan.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Radnor, or Wayne Elementary, we did a week and a half ago. Liaison reports. I don't think, Luke, you said you were a little light today?
Not light, I know we're short on time and we're running out of time, so I'll keep it very quick if that's
Okay,
all right,
sure,
Josh, just to
that's
keep
good.
everyone up to date, as recreation community programming is always busy. We had the Radnor Family Movie Night on September 7th, we had the Fall Festival on the 15th, and the Willows Concert and Fireworks on the 21st, all of which were successes. They had good turnouts, everybody had a good time, great family events. Coming up on the 6th, there's the Fall Harvest and Great Pumpkin patch event, which is at the Willows at 1 on October 6th. And there's a school safety seminar on October 9th at 7 p.m. here regarding safety in the schools in the area. Our big thing right now is we passed on a resolution to the Board of Commissioners to rename one of the parks in Radnor Township after Radnor veterans. We met at the American Legion 2 weeks ago to get ideas on which park they'd like, what they'd like to name it, things of that nature, and got a lot of feedback. So we didn't pass on anything in particular. They think it's going to be St. David's Park, which is right down the street from my house, and it's right across the street from the American Legion. They think it's going to be named something along the lines of Veterans Memorial Park of Radnor Township, Veterans of Radnor Memorial Park, something along those lines. So,
They actually passed it on Monday.
oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, I didn't see the meeting. So we passed that on, and so that's the main thing we've been working on lately, and that's about all I have right now.
Great, thanks, Luke. Then maybe we should transform the entire Willows lawn into a pumpkin patch. Huh? How's that?
Oh, the geese wouldn't like it.
Yeah, oh. Kill
That's
that,
right, the
we can
geese.
Kill that
The geese,
bird
yep.
and. All right. Old business. Any old business?
I did, last time I'd mentioned that there's a cell phone recycling program at Tredyffrin Township building. They collect cell phones and toner cartridges. I passed the information along to the township. I checked out the company they use. It looks like a fairly easy process. The company supplies a collector container, posters, labels, postage, and you just have to put it out in a public place and then send it in, and you get paid for the value of the cell phones recycled. Sent that along to the township, to Steve Norsini, and obviously would be happy to help if that's something that they can get going. So we'll keep you posted.
Thanks. Any other old business? Any new business? Well, there being no.
How about geese? Any geese
Oh, yeah, I
updates?
meant to talk about that. Sorry about that. That under old business. What I'll say is that Steve, Dan, and I are working to meet our goal of presenting at the Board of Commissioners meeting, in October on our findings with relation to the alleged goose problem we have. And we are on target to do that. But I don't think there's anything we have necessarily that we want to present to you right now on that. Having said that, I think it's very important that the EAC sees what our findings are before we present, because we'd like this to be an EAC recommendation, not just a goose group.
So it'll be your
recommendation.
findings and then some solutions that you'll be recommending?
It will be something
Okay.
of that nature, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure, I'd be interested.
Yeah, so I think what we'd like to do, I think we have another meeting before the last October Board of Commissioners meeting. I think there's a Board of Commissioners meeting on the 28th. We meet on the 24th. Is that enough time for us to present our findings to you and get your feedback? And
Yeah, and maybe if we got them to the EAC group by email, say a week before the EAC meeting,
here's what we're thinking.
right.
Give
And
you
then
some
we
time
have
to-
some discussion at the meeting and
preliminary.
then tweak things for
Mhm.
the commissioners meeting.
That would be great.
That'd be all right?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So that's what we'll do then. Next meeting will be a goose meeting.
Great.
Okay? Come prepared.
That's right.
Okay, thanks. Meeting adjourned.